First, we calm our bodies and soul. We breathe, focusing on each breath. In these moments of silence, we focus on one word: love. Let love consume us as we breathe it in and release it to the world. Love. Forgive us for not seeing. Soften our hearts so that we may forgive our enemies. Strengthen our arms so that we may carry each other. Warm our souls so that we may show true compassion. Open our ears so that we may hear the cries of our sisters and brothers. Give us strength so that we may serve you with all that we are. We are human. We are divine. We are made in your image, O God. We are flesh. We are spirit. We are weak and we are strong. We are fearful and we are courageous. We experience joy. We suffer with concerns. We are in need of prayer.
The scripture I'm going to read for you this morning is from Matthew, chapter 25, verse 31 through 33, and this is from the Message. And I think this is a story you kind of already heard, the children's moment. When he finally arrives, blazing in beauty and all his angels with him, the Son of Man will take his place on his glorious throne. Then all the nations will be arranged before him, and he will sort out people out, much as a shepherd sorts sheep and goats, putting sheep on his right and goats to his left. And the king will say to those on his right, "Enter, you are blessed by my Father. Take what's coming to you in this kingdom. It's been ready for you since the world's foundation, and here is why. I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was homeless, and you gave me a room. I was shivering, and you gave me clothes. I was sick, and you stopped to visit. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then those sheep are going to say, "Master, what are you talking about? When did we ever see you hungry and feed you? Thirsty and give you a drink? When did we ever see you sick in prison and come to you?" Then the king will say, "I'm telling the solemn truth. Whenever you did one of these things to someone overlooked or ignored, that was me. You did it to me." May the Lord add his blessing to this message.
In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. And then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness God called night. And there was evening, and there was morning on the first day. A wind from God swept over the face of the waters. I love that imagery from the beginning of Genesis. The wind of God, the Holy Spirit, was present before the beginning of creation and will be present beyond the end of how we know things now. The wind is in the breath. When we are born, the doctor gives us a little smack to help us along in claiming our first breath. Do you remember that? I do it. I never liked doctors ever since. They always came at you with a needle. The breath of God that maintains life, no matter who we are, where we were born, or how big our bank account. We share the same wind from God. We breathe the same air, the same Spirit. The Spirit present since the beginning of time, waiting for us to be born, leaving us as we pass into a much larger room. Today's Father's Day. I thought it fitting to tell you some stories about my father. I'm going to be a little indulgent here. My dad passed into that much larger room almost 5 years to the day. My father was a great man, a loyal son, loving father and loving husband. He was a friend to many, an icon, and a true character. He was also less than perfect, like the rest of us. My father, Roland Loomis, was named after me. Now, my dad wasn't one to give compliments directly to your face. So when he did, it was all the more meaningful. So if you received a compliment from my father, it was fully meant. If you received a tongue lashing or were the butt of one of his jokes, he meant that too. My father had an amazing wit, second only to his brother. All his children inherited that wit. You can blame my father for my humor and my overuse of sarcasm. I grew up thinking that sarcasm was normal. And then I found out, no. I get in trouble with people who are not sarcastic. The nerve. I just have to make sure that, whose company I'm in and how well you know me. I think for those of you that know me now, you know that I'm very sarcastic. I'm going to write a book someday, and it's going to be called Sayings of My Father, or the Raleigh Loomis Book of Wisdom, or the Book of Sayings, or maybe just BS for short. Here are some of his gems. You've heard this before, I'm sure. You can catch more flies with honey than poop. Or something like that. That's not here. The worst drivers are women and old men in hats. If it weren't for lawyers, now, are there any lawyers? Please forgive me if there are any lawyers in the congregation. One of my congregations had 10 lawyers in it, and I had to be very careful. And one judge even. If it weren't for lawyers, you wouldn't need them. Did that sink in? I'm sorry, Christine. Present company excluded. There are jokes about ministers too, so you can be free and tell them. My dad often had need of the wisdom of his many lawyer he had many lawyer friends. That reminds me of a great feud between my father and my uncle and the Baker boys in town. This has become a myth, so some of the details, they're not that important. This is how I remembered it. It all started when his friend and nemesis, Dave Baker, and other accomplices went down to our, we called it the farm, the ranch, whatever. It was a place where we had some acreage and a couple ponds and a stream, and it was a beautiful place. And there's this one pond that my dad and my uncle would stock with trout, so that they had an easy, first day of trout season, they could just go and catch their fish, easy peasy. Well, the Baker boys and his accomplices went down and dumped copious amounts of food into the pond, thus suppressing the appetite of the fish. The first day of trout season was a flop. The Lewis boys, not being ones to miss an opportunity for revenge, returned a similar favor to the Baker boys. They sent Charlie Gason down, he's a welder, sent Charlie Gason down to their cabin and the night before deer season and welded the gate shut. This was all in good fun to them, but the feud progressed. A lot of tit for tat was exchanged until finally a truce had to be drawn before someone got hurt. Now, the late attorney and dear friend, local icon, dear friend of the family, Donald Butler, was engaged to draw up a formal binding agreement containing way too many therefores and heretowiths and all of that language. It was funny, I wish I could find it. I think he was paid by the word. Did you find out that lawyers are often paid by the word? And hard words too, that you don't even need in there. They just keep adding. I'm sorry, Christine. So, the agreement was executed by all parties hereto mentioned, and a period of peace set in, except for a few minor skirmishes not covered under the treaty. My dad loved a good joke. He was a good sport. He played a good hand of cards. He loved golf. He was honest and generous. He was fair and just. My dad taught his children values and fair play. Dad was a hunter. His trophy room contained heads from all over the world. He went on excursions to Alaska, Mongolia, Siberia, China, South Africa, not to mention most U.S. states and provinces of Canada. He loved the outdoors. I believe that hunting was secondary to the adventure of just being outside. He was a snowmobiler. Well, he was more like a snowmobile repairman for his kids. He and my mom put us all through college. He often bragged about his 4 kids. He was so proud of us all. After I became a minister, he loved to tell everyone about me being a chip of the old block. Now, if you knew him, you knew how funny that statement was. My dad preached gun safety, but practiced something completely different. He shot a hole through the floor of his truck. Twice. He shot a hole through the hood of his truck. Twice. Now, he shot a hole through the ceiling in our house. Only once. But he was teaching me gun safety. You've heard of people living 9 lives? My dad had 19. My dad was generous. He always helped a friend in need. My brothers Jerry and Tim and my sister Debbie and I had need for nothing. We were taught good principles and good manners. My mom and dad were good models for us. Sometimes my dad was too generous. Once he left a $1,500 tip to a waitress in San Diego. Actually, he accidentally left his money clip on the counter. So the joke for his life is that he's a big tipper. Oh well, that's what legends are made of. Later that day that he lost his money clip, he saved a poodle that was under attack by a pit bull. And he received a whole bunch of nasty bites to himself. Life was full of adventure, full of joy, full of pride, sometimes pain. He lived life to the fullest. Oh, and he was a bad driver. Second only to my grandfather, who's still infamous in that small town for his bad driving. My father had so many accidents, and I'm elaborating too much, I know, but my father had so many accidents that when he ordered a new truck, they would order 2 so that they had parts on hand. True. My dad was truly a legend. He went to the Air Force at 17. He helped build the family business. He worked hard and he played hard. During his career, he built hundreds of miles of highways and manufactured millions of feet of concrete pipe. In the early 60s, he and my grandfather and my uncle built a 300-acre development with a lake, and the beautiful community still stands today. My dad lived for his family. He always said that he wanted to have an easier life, that he wanted for us to have an easier life than he had. He meant that, and he fulfilled that promise. My dad and my mom traveled the world together right up to the last few years of my mom's life. My dad took very good, tender care of my mom all through her life, and especially during the illness that would finally take her. She wanted nothing. Everything was provided. My dad has never been, or was never to be, the same since my mom died. He missed her dearly. This is from 2 Timothy verse 4. 6 through 8, I'm sorry. For I am already on the point of dying. The time of my departure has come. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have been faithful. And it was time for my dad to go. Let's imagine about 5 years ago, almost to the day, actually May 30th, it was early in the morning. Angels surrounded him. My sister Debbie held his hand. Slowly his breath began to slow. His soul moved on. The wind of God carried him home. There were angels on both sides as he slipped peacefully from an earthly existence into a place of beauty. There he stood at the pearly gates to the city of God. And the gates were closed. Drat, he said, or something like that. I won't go into his colorful language. Use your imagination. Drat, he said, I kind of figured that this might happen. After all, I haven't led the purest life like my son Raleigh. had ever seen. But it didn't hurt his eyes, or even make his eyes squint. Within the light was the pure, loving presence of God. And surrounding God, a heavenly host of angels, the spirits of all creation. Then the gates slowly swung open wide. From within the light came a voice, not male or female. A loving voice saying, "Fear not, I go before you always. Come in, Raleigh Loomis. I have prepared a place for you since the beginning of time." "But what did I do to deserve this?" said my dad. And the voice replied, "The grace of God is given to all. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was close to losing my home, and you bailed me out. Once I was attacked by a mean beast, and you put yourself at risk to save me. Over your life, you created a refuge for animals. You hugged me and told me you loved me. Many, many times, you did great things for me," God said to my dad. "When did I do all these things for you?" asked my dad. "Truly I tell you, whenever you did for the least of my creation, you did it for me." "That was me," answered the voice. And with that, my dad entered into the light to join all the souls that had ever been or ever will be. The first one he saw was his true love, his wife, my mom, Marion, who had patiently been waiting and calling him home. Many others gathered around to welcome him. His mother Anna, Father Irving, and his brother Wordy were right up in front. Aunts and uncles and friends slowly made their way toward him. It was a joyful reunion. As all those saints gathered around my dad, they fused into one bright, pure, joyful, loving oneness that watches over us now until it's our time to stand before that heavenly gate. And the wind from God continues to sweep over all the heavenly and earthly beings in the city of God. Grace is given to all of us, dear friends. Fear not, for God's grace will take us anywhere our heart so desires.